Cricket today with a special segment. Rather than the usual knuckleheads, we've brought in some professionalism. I'm here with Daniel Cherny, cricket, AFL, AFLW sports journalist at Code Sports, one of the best in the business, who's up and about in Brisbane, actually, currently ahead of the second test. How you going, Dan? Thanks for joining us.
No, good to be with you, Liam. All well yourself?
Yeah, really good. Very excited for the test match coming up. Hopefully it's a bit of a longer one, but we'll see how we go. What did you make of the last tests? It felt like the Aussies obviously were going to dominate, but West Indies weren't too bad. Yeah,
it's funny. I mean, we talk about how quickly the test was finished inside 7 sessions, but it does take two to tango there. And if it was, the really one-sided tests are never over that quickly because, one team bats for, Australia. And certainly last summer when the West Indies were here, they batted for a couple of days consecutively in Perth and then in Adelaide as well. Excuse me. Sorry. Obviously the West Indies did really well with the ball. Shamar Joseph was probably the story of the test as much as anyone.
Definitely.
On debut, incredible story, incredible backstory. Guy from this remote Guyanese village of Barracara.
Unbelievable.
Only played 5 first-class matches, was bowling with a tape ball a couple of years ago. Just ridiculous. And to get Steve Smith first ball, the way he slogged there late on day one. But having said that, look, it's funny because Australia were 5 for 137, I think.
It was close at that point, 100%, yeah.
Still 50-odd in arrears, and then Travis Head sort of took the game away. Yeah. And look, once they got to a lead of almost 100, it was, the Windies were always up against it. But from there, they probably needed to take a first innings lead if they were going to have any chance. Yeah, and just their batting was just folded so easily. Really, helpful bowling conditions for sure, and that's been a bit of a trend across all Australian venues of recent times. But by the same token, they just don't look up to a very inexperienced lineup. And Australia, the bowling obviously is at the other extreme where during that test, Josh Hazlewood passed 250 test wickets, which means that all 4 of them have that mark. Obviously, Nathan Lyon went past 500 earlier this summer. So, it's a huge, we've got huge numbers there. And, in the end, it probably turned out as expected.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely spot on there. Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one. West Indies were in the game for a bit. Trav Ball took over, and it was still a really fun test, that's for sure. Before we get into the second test, I might quickly touch on the big bash of the season we've just had. I saw you write some articles. Awesome. Sutherland got a call up into the ODI squad. Good to see some BBL players getting rewarded. Before we get into the test stuff, I just wanted to ask you, what's your favourite BBL moment of the season, Dan? I think there's been a lot. I think it's been a really good season. A bit of a resurgence on the Big Bash, especially with TV viewers. Even crowds have been pretty solid. So I've been at a really fun season with that. What's your favourite moment of the season, though?
I mean, it's one of those comps where, it's often the quirky things that really catch your eye. But I must say that game between the Scorchers and the Sixers late in the season when they were both vying for a top 2 finish, just an incredible finish, incredible game, high scoring, packed house, sort of had everything you really wanted on both sides. So it was an exceptional match of cricket, exceptional game of cricket, and really the Big Bash at its best. And whatever you say about WA and their parochial fans, I mean they do get behind their team.
They turn up, yeah.
They turn up, and I don't know what that says about the WA sporting psyche, but they really do get behind their teams, and they they're just. They've been so crucial for the competition. So that was an incredible finish, and the Sixers getting it done. And in the end, that's been a really important result in the way the season's unfolded. The Sixers did get that double chance. They used it. They beat Brisbane, hosting the final, and the Scorchers were eliminated in the match against the Strikers.
No, I love that call. That game was absolutely awesome. 2 of the best teams of the last, 5 to 10 years just dominating the Big Bash, coming together to try and make that top spot. Yeah, that's a really good one. All right, let's get into the Windies taking on Australia in the second test in Brisbane, where you're at up there in Brisbane. You mentioned it before about the Windies batting. They're definitely struggling in that top to middle order. The tail was doing all the work. Where do you reckon they're getting it wrong with the bat? And should they recall Brian Lara? I saw him in the nets in Adelaide last week. He looked pretty solid, even though he's 50 years old. So taking having a bit of a laugh there. But what are they doing with the bat? They're getting it wrong, just especially that top order.
I don't know. You look at the first-class records of these guys, and that's it's not as though they have a lot to call on. I'm not sure there's too many. I can't say I follow the West Indies first-class system all that closely, but from what I can tell, it's not as though there are a lot of guys, banging down the door any more than the guys that they've selected. They sort of are picking the best that they have available. They're obviously hamstrung by the absence of the likes of Jason Holder and Kyle Mayers, guys playing, guys overseas playing in some of these T20 competitions in South Africa and the UAE, which clearly means that they're picking from a weakened pool, diluted pool. Perhaps there's an issue where a lot of their most promising cricketers sort of tend to prioritise T20 white balls as opposed to the red ball. I think the other thing is the pitches there in the Caribbean are so different to the ones you see in Australia. And I think maybe historically Australian fans have had a bit of a warped view of West Indies cricket and pitches. You think because of their famed fast bowlers in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you think they're a fast bowling nation region.
Yep.
The truth of the matter is the pitches there really favour spin. I mean, they are very spin-friendly decks. Definitely. And if you look at the numbers in their first-class cricket, they've got the guys there, they're averaging, there's a lot of spinners averaging some very, very low numbers with the ball. And I don't think that prepares you overly well for a Test tour of Australia. They just don't, and every time Craig Brathwaite, their captain, or senior representatives are asked, what can we do to help? I mean, there's many things, and funding is clearly a big part of it.
Funding, of course, yeah.
But the other thing is just that, they don't play that much Test cricket, full stop. So it means it's staccato. So you're playing a couple of tests here and a couple of tests 5 months down the track in different conditions. And, how do you build, how do you improve when it's all over the shop like that? So there's no silver bullet, and it makes it very hard.
No, you're right. Especially funding, obviously, a lot of people talk about. But then, like you just said, they haven't played a test since July last year. I had a look at the other day. So this is that was like their first test match for a long time. And when you're doing like that, it's definitely tough to just come into the different format. You're spot on there. All right, we'll go into the next one. What do the Aussies need to do to stop the opposition tail from wagging? Obviously, a bit frustrating with Pakistan and the West Indies this summer. Both their 10 and 11s have had 40-run partnerships across both series. It's really strange. Usually you got Stark who can clean it up. Maybe just need a bowl at the stumps more. I don't know if it's that simple. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a lingering issue. It sort of raised its head during the Ashes. There were I know there was a lot of frustration from Australian fans and some of the pundits around how are they bowling to the tail, and you're a little short ball tactics and strategy to try to bounce out the tail, and and England's tail really wagged. I mean, look, arguably turned the series. Mark Wood, when he whacked those sixes straight after lunch on day 2, I think it was at
you're right,
Headingley. So that was and then that sort of faded away a little bit, but then it sort of come back here with these tests against those last couple against Pakistan and the West Indies. I mean, I think it's hard to know. Could it just be an anomaly? I mean, interestingly, we asked Josh Hazlewood about it during the test in Adelaide, and he sort of laughed it off. And look, it's easy to laugh it off when you're winning, they're not. It's not a huge issue for them, but maybe it's as simple as they're not doing enough homework on these guys to find out that you put all your eggs into one basket. Maybe it's just a complete aberration and an anomaly, and it'll even itself out over time. A guy like Shamar Joseph, for instance, slogging it to the death. I mean, they just have. There's so little footage available of him batting.
True.
They don't know his. And they do. These guys, the team, they do a lot of analysis, but you can sort of only do the analysis with the data that you have available. And for a guy like Shamar Joseph, they've seen a little bit of him bowl and that, but he's played so little cricket that where are his strong zones, where are his weak zones, hard to know. So look, it's an interesting one. I think it's another one where it's not, not panic stations by any stretch, but just one to keep an eye on, I think, during this test. And if it happens again, I think, 3 times in a row, you think, maybe there's something to this.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. If it happens again, it could be a worry in future series where it could come back to bite us, where they could make a bigger score. They've made a bigger score before that. You're right about Shamar Joseph. I don't think they have any footage of him in the backyard with his tape tennis ball or anything like that. So it makes it a bit tough. All right, so we've done a few questions there. Let's get into a prediction for the match. How many days do you reckon? Something obviously 2 and a bit, last one, and a player you're excited to watch. So what's your prediction? Yeah, how many days? And who's one to watch in this one, do you reckon, Dan?
I actually think it'll go 5 because of the rain.
Ooh. Oh, yep.
There's a lot of rain around. It's pretty bad, yeah. cyclones. Talk of cyclones in Queensland. It's a pretty heavy storms. So I think double check that, but I think it's a pretty bad. There's pretty heavy rain ahead in short, in Queensland type extreme rain. So I think it'll go. I think Australia will get it done, but it might take them a bit longer than they would have otherwise hoped because of the weather. It'll be interesting to see, whether because of that Australia's play the game a bit differently. I imagine they'll probably send the Windies in again, pink ball, etc. And a player I'm excited to watch. I'm very interested to see. Well, I suppose it's two players, but Steve Smith and Cameron Green again in their spots, particularly Cameron Green. I think he, he's got a bit to prove still, and he ended up having an impact on that match in Adelaide, despite failing with the bat, because he took a couple of great catches at Gully
amazing in there, and
took a wicket. But ultimately, they've said they feel he's one of the second selectors. This is say he's one of their best six batters, and in the country, which is a lot of high praise, and he's got to sort of back that up. So interested to see how he goes. Yeah,
no, I'll agree with you on that one. I talked to him up the last test. I think the spotlight definitely is on, obviously, Smith opening, Cam Green in at 4. So I'm excited to see how he goes. Hopefully he can make some runs, because I think he's still got, obviously, the potential. Everyone's around him, but he does need to make some runs, especially against a poorer West Indies side if he wants to hold his spot for the later series. Don't mind that. I think you could be right with the weather in Australia versus West. I think we're going to get the job done, but you're right. It could take a bit longer, especially if there's cyclones around. Let's finish off this segment. We like to do a blind ranking on the show sometimes. So I haven't told you which players I'm going to read out, but I want you to give me 1 to 5 or any order when I read these players out. I'm going to do some of the best Aussie fast bowlers of all time. And if you don't mind, can you just give me a 1 to 5, Dan? All right. So I'll start with the first one off the rank is Dennis Lilly. Where would you put him 1 to 5?
Okay, so I don't know who the other 5 are.
No, you don't know who it's a blind one, so it makes it a bit funny. So you could go really big at the start, or So it is the best fast bowlers of all time. So you probably know most of them.
All right. With DK, I'm going to put him up at number 2.
2, yeah. No, I rate that. Then we got Pat Cummins.
4.
4, yeah. Brett Lee.
5.
5. Ooh. Jeff Thompson.
Ooh. Well, if I had a chance again, I'd have him ahead of. I'd have him behind Cummins.
Yeah, it makes it tough.
But 3.
3, yeah. And then we're finishing off with Glenn McGrath.
1.
Oh, you've done pretty well there, I reckon.
If I had my time again, just Cummins and Tomo would be the only 2 I'd switch, but the rest I'm comfortable with.
No, I think you've done really well. We usually stuff them up and have them all over the shop. So no, very happy with that. I think you've done really well there. I think that's it. Check out Daniel Cherny on Code Sports, some great articles in the lead up to this test, and also on Twitter as well at Daniel Cherny, which we get around that. And thanks heaps for coming on, Dan. I'm very excited for the test match coming up.
No, pleasure, Liam, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Let's get right back into the usual Cricket Today show.